Hi, I'm Nuwan Gebelenege. Today we are going to discuss about Azure SQL databases. In simple terms, Microsoft Azure SQL DB is a relational database on cloud. We try and understand what are the advantages of deploying an Azure SQL DB as compared to an on-premise database. First thing is fast deployment, and if you are to compare an on-premise SQL database, it takes time for you to set up the server, and then on top of that you need to install SQL, the service packs, and then setting up the clusters. There's quite a lot of work involved there, and it may take days. Whereas Azure SQL DB can be set up in a few minutes. And then there's no upfront cost. If you want to set up an on-premise DB, there's cost incurred in the hardware, the licensing for server as well as SQL server. Whereas in Azure SQL DB, it's a pay-as-you-go model. So if you use it, you'll incur cost. If you don't use it, you can reduce the cost to a minimum. The reason why I'm saying it's minimum, there is still a small cost incurred for your storage and the minimum compute power. Then the flexibility, reliability, and security. You can increase your resources, you can decrease your resources as and when you want. Microsoft provides a 4.9, that is 99.99% uptime guarantee, and it's secure and has all the latest security features enabled, along with virus threat protections, transparent data encryption, and many features. Other than that, we have additional features such as elastic pools. We will discuss this elastic pools in a later video, but if you think of scenario where you have 4 servers that has workloads during different times. For an example, server 1 has a workload at 10 a.m. and then the next server has a workload at 12 p.m. and another one at 2 p.m. and another one at 4 p.m. So what you can do is you can scale up and down the resources of each of these databases as and when their peak performance requirements are. You have a lot of flexibility around that. So that's elastic pools in a nutshell. And you can easily integrate your Azure databases with many Azure features. You can integrate your database development with Visual Studio Team Services. You can integrate this with Power Apps, Power BI. You have Azure Flow. Along with that, there are many applications in the Azure stack which you can make use of easily when you use Azure SQL DB. Let's get started with a demo on how to set up Azure SQL DB. The first thing that we need to do is to browse into azure.microsoft.com, and here it shows you that you can sign up for a free account if you haven't already got one. I've already signed up for Azure. When you sign up, you can get 12 months of free services, and they've got more than 25 always free services. There's also a £150 credit available for you to get started, and this would be sufficient for you to get started in your Azure SQL DB journey. Unfortunately, it's not one of those 25 always free services, but here you go, you got more than enough credit. So I'm going to go into my portal, and I'm going to say I want to create a new resource. Now on your left hand side, you have all the resource categories that are available, or most commonly known resource categories, and you can also search for resources on the search bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight into databases and select Azure SQL database. And first thing that you need to do is select a subscription. Now the subscription contains your payment information, and then you need to create a resource group. So for this, I've already got a resource group available, but I'm going to create a new resource group. And using resource groups makes it so easy for you to manage your resources. So you can assign certain resources for certain departments. You can say the finance department's servers belong to finance resource groups, the marketing department's resources belong to marketing department's resource groups, and so on. So I'm going to create a new resource group. I'm going to call it Azure SQL Demo. And then you need to enter a database name. So I'm going to call it SQL demo, and you need to have a logical server for you to host this database in. Now I've already got a server set up, but I'd rather create a new server in this new resource group so that I can easily manage my servers. So I'm going to create a new server. It needs a name for the server and it has to be unique. Needs an admin login for your server and the password, and you've got the option of creating the server as close as possible to where you are. Now there are certain restrictions on certain regions. It's always best to stick to this recommended list so that most of the services are enabled through these servers. So I'm going to select Europe, UK, South and then say OK, and I've got the basic setup done. Then it's asking us whether you want to create an SQL Elastic pool. For the moment we're going to say no, and then you can configure your compute and storage. So I'm going to go ahead and configure my database, and you can scale this up and down as and when you want. So as of now it's saying it's got 2 vCores and the maximum size of data is 32 gigabytes. Now I don't really need that much, but it's okay to go ahead with that. There are 3 main tiers of Azure SQL deployments. One is the general purpose, and that's pretty much alright for most of the day-to-day tasks, and it provides with a 4.9 or 99.99% uptime, and it's got 2 milliseconds latency in reading and 10 millisecond latency in writing, and you've got 2 more options with business critical, with where the latency is fairly reduced and 4.9 uptime, and then hyperscale, which is there for large database projects, which is going up to about 400 terabytes. So I'm gonna stick to general purpose. There's also a mechanism of configuring your server, saying looking at basic, standard or premium, but this is not the recommended setup by Microsoft. Microsoft always recommends vCore based purchasing options. So I'm going to reduce my storage. I don't want too much, so that, as you see, it reduced my cost. If I want more compute power, I can bring it up and my monthly cost goes up. I reduce it, my monthly cost goes down. Now I'm gonna apply my changes here. Next, you can define whether you want the server to be accessed from outside, or you want to keep it internal, or you want to make sure that it does not have any access at all. So for the moment I'm going to call it a public endpoint, and I can add my client IP address so that I can get connected from my SQL Server Management Studio directly into Azure SQL database, and there we go, I've selected that. And also I can allow Azure services and resources to access this server. Say for an example, I've got a Databricks environment, or if I've got a Power App that is trying to get connected, all those services should be able to interact with database. So I will say yes to that as well. Next we've got additional settings. You can define your collation. So I'm happy with this SQL Latin 1 general, case insensitive, accent sensitive setup, and you can also enable advanced data security. You can set up the database using a backup, or you can use a sample database. Now if you select sample, it will provide you with the well-known AdventureWorks database. So I'm gonna say I'm not gonna use any existing data. I'm gonna create it as a fresh database. Here we've got tags, and finally you review and create, and it says initializing my deployment. So my deployment has been successful and it has taken about 2 minutes. So now I can go to my resource and see its usage. I can use the other services that are associated with that, and I can set the firewall rules. Now earlier I did set up my client IP, so that should be sufficient. I'm going to go back and I can configure its geo-replication, the connection strings available here, and there are different properties. So I'm going to go straight into my SQL Server Management Studio, which you can download separately and make use of this server name. And I've used Azure SQL admin and the password. And it connects me to the database. So you can see my SQL demo database. It's empty. It hasn't got any tables. Here you can create tables. So I've created a simple table, refresh, and you see the table available. I'm going to insert some values into this product table. I can query it. What I wanted to show you was that there's not much of a write latency and read latency for simple queries. And finally, I'm going to go back into my Azure portal. And now I don't want much processing power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the resource requirement. So I'm going to go into configure, reduce my resource utilization to a minimum. So I'm going to go for basic and look at the cost. It's $465.64 per month. Not bad. So I'm going to apply these settings and it shows that it is scaling my database. So once it's scaled down, it will not incur the £322 cost. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.